do so that these veterans that are coming back can get a job? And again, we will start with you, Janice.
Reframing that, so let's just talk a little bit about private sector employment practices. I'm a DOE contractor. If you want to work for me, you have to fill out an I-9. If I don't do my job and have a completed I-9, that means I have to prove that you can work in this country legally. I can be fined, I can go to jail. So, we already have rules in place that do this. The wrinkle is, that you're describing, Rick, is we have an executive order that now actually circumvents the rules on the private sector. That's where I really have a problem. I have a problem with the executive order. I believe that Congress should have acted and said, no, this is not within the executive's authority to act. It is not the executive's right to circumvent Congress or the Constitution in this case. The way that our government works, however, is all three branches must be pulling in the same direction. The fact that Congress did not stand up truly troubles me. As your member of Congress, I assure you, for executive orders that skirt their authority, I will be standing up. And I wish there was a clear answer, because now we're really in a pickle. To me, in the private sector, because the other answer could be, well, we can go create a new law until the private sector now, they have to comply with yet another regulation. The regulation is out there. We have an I-9 policy. There is a law in this country that says that if you are not documented, that you may not work under certain conditions. You are supposed to use the I-9 E-Verify process. Now, do we look the other way in some industries? I don't want that either. So adding another regulation is not the answer, but we have taken an executive order and really gummed up the words in my opinion.
Thank you.
These issues are difficult because, as you heard both of us describe this evening, you have a Congress that can't work together, is failing to provide action. Whether we all agree with those actions or not, the failure to do anything causes somebody to do something. And again, we may have some folks here who disagree with that executive order and some who don't. I worked for 3 different governors, Governor King, Governor Johnson, and Governor Richardson. And in this administration with Governor Martinez, there are some debates about when, and I'll give you one right now, for implementation of the Affordable Care Act, about whether or not the governor, by executive order, can establish a health care exchange, which is one of the opportunities and requirements under this new law. Every governor I worked for in a debate with the legislature would often then identify whether or not an executive order to get to the same issue was something that they had the authority to do. Now the question here is, and it remains to be seen about the president's authority, but I don't want folks to leave here with the notion that this is some brand new effort taken out of context just on immigration issues, that it is something that happens, and it happens, I think, more frequently in environments where people will not work together. What we need to do in this country is hold businesses accountable who are hiring folks who are undocumented. That we must have an immigration policy that makes sense so that we can end the debate and move forward. And we have to make sure that we do something about unemployment for everyone. I have a daughter who's 26 years old who lives with me. She's going to go back to school, and it's because she's in a job that she can't live, she doesn't make a meaningful wage. And the only way for her to do that, the only way for any of our children to do that successfully, is to get an education, is to go to college, go to vocational school, get those skills and training. The reality is she can't really afford to go to school. We're not investing in school either. And when she gets out, I can't promise her that there will be a job waiting for her unless we all decide that the #1 issue that this Congress should come together on is improving the economy and putting people back to work. And the sooner we do that, the more meaningful opportunities we have to make decisions that make sense, benefit everyone, that are clear about our American priorities, and clear about, back to this debate, about what we should be doing for our veterans when they return home. home. That unemployment rate, I mean, all unemployment rates today are unacceptable. But when we're already investing money in training assistance programs and trying to pass legislation, and there are local government programs, and we still have 11%, I tell you, it's less so much then about the economy and more about that we're not providing the health care, the behavioral health, and the tools and training that these men and women need when they come home.
Thank you very much. And I know that that's a difficult question, and thank you all for letting me rephrase that. So Michelle will start on this one. When each service member raised his right hand and swore to defend this great nation, we were promised medical care for the rest of our lives. The medical care promise was made in good faith. We served our country in good faith. The promise for medical care was sanctioned by the United States Congress. They made that promise. They need to keep that promise. With base closures and military facilities closing, more and more treatment facilities are being closed. What is your responsibility going to be that Congress keeps that promise to its American veterans?
I will do everything in my power to meet that commitment, and I agree in the way in which the question was framed that we really never met that promise. And in fact, let me tell you about some of the gaps. We have 8 million patients or more in the Veterans Health Administration. It is the only in this country fully integrated healthcare system. But it's regionalized, and so you don't have access to the clinics that you need. You don't always have access to the hospitals that you need. You're already having to drive. And when I was the Secretary of Health, we put a VA clinic in a long-term care facility in Fort Baird because we had a significant number of veterans who were driving for dialysis 1 hour, 2 hours, 5 hours to Albuquerque. It is an untenable situation. And this is frankly before we get to long-term care. And we haven't met that commitment. We have so much work to do to make sure that we restore those programs and services, that we're working with states to make sure that we invest appropriately. And today, we have a unique opportunity to do that. With the passage of the Affordable Care Act, there is $250 million in New Mexico today. That's generating jobs and health care services and benefits that will make their way to the VA because the VA bills those insurance companies and Medicare and Medicaid. And it's that's part of their budget, and that's part of the budget problem. And that's part of the budget problem, is that we created an environment that was never fully funded. It's required to collect insurance payments from all the other insurance systems, like Medicare and Medicaid for veterans. And we still have veterans waiting, just as I described in an earlier answer. I think there are many ways to bolster up the system, to make sure that we've got local clinics, to make sure that we're reinvesting in those services. And I'm confident that if we have our priorities right, that the Affordable Care Act gives us a very strong vehicle to shore up our veterans' health care benefits and to begin to have a real frank discussion about what we're going to do to shore up long-term care. Because I can tell you that when I was advocating for veterans as the Secretary of Aging, the notion that I had to ask people from Albuquerque and Santa Fe to go to the long-term care facility with truth or consequences, or worse, that they had to go to Colorado, or worse, that we provide nursing home care. But we won't provide home care and allow you to be independent and to live with dignity and respect, but we do that for everybody else under Medicaid and private insurance, is absolutely outrageous. And it's another issue where we have failed to do what we need to do for veterans' health.
Thank you.
Michelle has described some of the real serious problems that our veterans are facing. You know, some days I think the problem is we really need stronger advocates in Washington to remind them what it is like to be in the 11 western states. Nothing is nearby. So in case you're not certain, there are folks in Colorado that are in the Albuquerque, VA area. And the drives are amazing. And they do have to stay overnight. And you have to go, now wait a minute, does this make any sense? And it doesn't. So there is hope here. And one of the ideas that our current Secretary of Veterans Services, Tim Hale, is working on, and I believe could be adopted throughout the VA system, is mobile units. Because having our veterans drive for 6 or 8 hours to sit in a lobby, then maybe not be seen, and then still have to come back tomorrow, when we could be delivering some of the basic care in mobile units using telehealth, I think is something that it is time that we look at. I look at Las Vegas, New Mexico in particular. We have quite a population there. And, you know, we've provided buses, but, you know, it really isn't adequate. And as we get hip replacements and other things, it really, that drive is just awful. So I think there are some answers. But I want to go back to the Affordable Care Act. And you don't have to raise your hands, but we have TRICARE for life. I'm telling you, we're getting turned away. We're about to lose the pharmacy benefits off of TRICARE for life. And that is happening under the Affordable Care Act. And I am concerned about that. And I am looking at doctors who are telling me at 27% reduction in reimbursement that they are not going to be seeing our veterans, which will push everybody back in to the veterans, the VA facilities. The answer is we have to take a hard look at our budgets, and we are going to have to make some very hard choices. To me, the choice is when we make a promise to our veterans, to our seniors, we need to keep our priorities straight. There are going to be a lot of things that we're going to cut that you love. But ladies and gentlemen, do we keep our promises? I hope we do, and I hear the shaking of heads. That breaks my heart. We need to do better. I think we can keep our promises.
The issue with Medicare reimbursements, which are largely the issues for physicians and healthcare practitioners in trying to figure out whether or not they can afford to stay in business, are not addressed in the same way in the Affordable Care Act as they are in the current budget processes. So in order to control the cost, the growth of healthcare costs in veterans, and I want to talk about that for just one quick second, and in Medicare, all of healthcare, there's a requirement that we do a sustainable growth rate cut. And it's 27% if you go to 30% if Congress doesn't act. In the Affordable Care Act, there are protections for those reimbursement rates in Medicare to our healthcare community and our hospitals. I think they're insufficient, but they're a lot better than doing a 27. That would be a disaster. But I've worked in healthcare for more than 20 years, and physicians leave because they don't have a relationship with their patients. They're working for insurance companies and HMOs. They can't pay off their loans. They don't have the opportunities to practice where they want. It isn't about just reimbursement rates. Now, there are plenty of specialties who are really working to right-size that, but because we have so many different healthcare systems, it's a problem. The same is also true in the Veterans Health Administration. Figuring out exactly what we do and how we pay for it has been involved with the problem of expanding those services and doing those in a meaningful way. Probably the best thing that veterans does that we should be doing in every healthcare system is how they negotiate for pharmaceutical drugs. They have the best negotiated rates. If we apply those to Medicare in the Affordable Care Act, that's money to shore up and direct for veterans' health and long-term care for decades. Just that one change alone. We have so much opportunity without having to be thoughtless and draconian, and to have priorities where we're deciding between our children, our veterans, and our sick. We have an opportunity in this country to take care of everyone we should be taken care of in a meaningful and productive way. And I submit to you, I believe that Congresswoman to do just that.
Thank you. As you all prides itself in being very, very punctual, and I must thank both of you for staying within that allotment. And we here at the American Legion, we always strive to use the best quality equipment that we have. And so I'd like for our commander to raise up his timekeeping, looks like a blue belt or something. and you know, we take great pride in that owl. So that's good. So, you know, if you guys are off by 100th of a second, that owl will start hooting. So just to give you guys forewarning. Thank you all both for definitely keeping within the time frame. We do appreciate it. Janice, this next question you'll begin with. This one really astounded me when I researched this. New data from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the agency that tracks suicide rates, show that 18 veterans take their lives each day in America. That's 6,570 suicides each year. And more surprising, it's the Vietnam veteran that is the largest group. Where are we going to find the money to care for these veterans? Please.
The simple answer is we have to commit to the money. But the problem is bigger than that. Pete Comstock reminds me on a regular basis that the relationship between those who have served and those who are in trouble is probably the most important in terms of stemming suicide. The fact that this is happening and that we are also not talking about the suicides in theater today tells me that the stress of combat simply has to be addressed. And yet, as we ask more and more of our young people, will that increase the rates? So in terms of actual intervention for suicide, I have to tell you, I'm not sure that I know what the medical response is, but I know that people who are in trouble, that we have to find a way to reach out to them. Having worked with people in the military, unfortunately they are somewhat stubborn. All right, pig-headed. And for those who are in the World War II Korea group, guess what? They didn't say anything. Nothing. So we have got to find a way ourselves to reach out to one another. You can talk all day about this is the government's responsibility, but your government is not big enough. It is not big enough, and we don't have enough money. So I'm looking at this room yet again, and it is still, at the end of the day, it is going to be up to us. And I believe in those grassroots efforts. I will do everything in Congress to make sure that there is appropriate funding, that we are reaching out, that we are looking for those markers that suggest somebody's in trouble. It will take commitment, but still at the end of the day, it's up to you.
Thank you. Michelle?
Vietnam veterans comprise the largest percentage of the population of veterans today. And another fact about Vietnam veterans is that we didn't really understand or know how to diagnose PTSD. We do now, and I would certainly submit that we've got many returning veterans from the Middle East, from Iraq and Afghanistan, who have significant PTSD. So here's what we have. They aren't being seen. They aren't being treated. We have a lack of investment in behavioral health. We don't have parity. What happens when you can't be seen with PTSD is that you self-medicate. When you self-medicate, you have a substance abuse problem. And I will tell you that there is a growing substance abuse problem among this population. And therein lies the issue with so many suicides. What we need to do is not create an environment where we're self-medicating and frankly, putting our men and women who are returning home in that position. There are many good efforts, all evidence-based, done by the Centers for Disease Control, the National Institute of Health, to treat PTSD. And New Mexico actually led, I don't know if we led the country, but I would guess that we did in 2004 and 2005. And there was a real concerted effort to put New Mexico state funds into PTSD support and services. I don't know that that's been sustained in this state budget crisis, but it was making a difference. We have to reinvest. And again, with $250 million federal money here, and the effort now to lower healthcare costs, you can reinvest that money exactly where it should go. And where it should go is in behavioral health parity, so that we're treating these veterans. They should be screened immediately before they leave, and then they should be rescreened on their arrival. Half the battle here is that we're not screening individuals for PTSD. And by the time they recognize or we recognize it's an issue, we're often in real trouble. We can do something to turn around that disgraceful statistic. Suicide, homelessness, depression, substance abuse. The notion that this country's commitment has been reduced to such a failure for this population is a disgrace. And the only way that we address it is by making sure that it is the #1 priority about how we're reinvesting these healthcare dollars in our communities. And I would certainly do everything in my power, and I've been successful at that, and I'll be successful again. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I think this is an important discussion. When our veterans returned home from Vietnam, it was not a very welcome arena to come to. And so you didn't say anything. I'm hoping that I'm looking around the room, those of us of that era, we're all getting grayer, maybe we're wiser, and well, maybe not. That those who are in this area that are becoming self-medicating, I think that's a good term, are able to reach out. What I'm concerned about is our young kids coming back, I think are experiencing sort of the same thing that our Vietnam veterans experienced. And that is the promises made, the amount of red tape says, forget it, I'm not doing this, because they feel like we have not kept our word. And that very screening process is so invasive that they simply walk away. This is a much more important discussion. We're not there yet. And when I say that it is up to us making the screening attractive, making sure that we keep our words and don't drive these young kids simply into self-medication, I think we need to talk about it.
Thank you.
An interesting point. We could do the automatic screening. I've got some experience in behavioral health. It's not as arduous and invasive as you might think. It's really about just getting kind of a temperature gauge about where you are and what you need. But as important as that screening and those services are, is the reality that if you don't identify that service-related disability or issue, it is very difficult to access those benefits, which exacerbates the issue about when you're seen. If you're waiting months and or years before you're able to access those benefits, it is another issue, I think, of huge disrespect for our veterans. Now, I have a couple ideas, and it came to me because a 93-year-old veteran is still waiting for service-related disability benefits after years. 93. I'm concerned that he won't live long enough to receive those benefits. And certainly his spouse, because she's not alive anymore, didn't get to have survivor spousal benefits. It's not appropriate. They're backlogged because we require that serviceman or woman to prove that disability. Take, for example, a young man serving in Iraq. He's on a convoy through Baghdad, an IED is triggered, he's in a coma. He has several procedures or surgeries before he's even alert. The next thing he knows, he wakes up in a hospital in Germany, doesn't have access to any of those records, but when he gets home, he has to prove each and every incident. I think we need two things. We need a real ombudsman program that's serving veterans and making sure they get these benefits and they do the navigational work? And two, why do veterans have to prove those service-related disability? I say the government has to prove that you don't have them. The burden should not be on these families and individuals. We can turn that around, and we should, and I will.
Thank you. The final question for tonight. Michelle, the Fisher House is a home away from home for families of patients receiving medical care at military and VA medical centers. Today, over 17,000 families are helped by the Fisher House project. Albuquerque or New Mexico does not have a Fisher House. What, if any, is your commitment to help secure and fund a Fisher House?
Easy answer. We got to do it, and I'll tell you something. I don't know this answer, so Rick, I might need some help. The Ronald McDonald houses would serve families who have to travel and be supported while a loved one is receiving medical attention. They receive reimbursement from insurance companies, including Medicaid. Now, Medicaid's not an insurance company, but it's part of an insurance program. I don't know if Fisher Houses are reimbursed or supported by veterans, and if they aren't, they certainly should be, because it's part of that benefit. But I will tell you this, before coming here tonight, I wish I had known that we need one in Albuquerque, because as a parting gesture, as a Bernalillo County Commissioner, we are building and funding an adolescent treatment center for adolescents who have behavioral health and substance abuse issues. And we could have just as readily invested in the Fisher House. And while I'm campaigning, I'll start that work immediately. That's the kind of work that I've done for 20 years, and I have to say with great pride and gratitude for my community partners with great success. And I'm going to tell you this, I'm not going to wait until I'm elected to Congress. We should be working on that together right now. So you have my commitment from this day forward to try to make that happen. Thank you for that opportunity. I'm very grateful.
Thank you.
Thankfully, we already have a group of very dedicated, mostly women, mostly moms, who are actually working on this already. They have worked diligently with the Wounded Warrior Project, which is a group that is well known, but there are a lot of steps, and they will be coming to you for your donations, because just getting it off the ground will take the private sector before we build that private-public partnership. But I believe it is coming. But while I have the opportunity to talk about some of the things that are still problematic, you know, we still have some issues, even at the Fisher House with the VA, with the Department of Defense. You know, when we went into Iraq and Afghanistan and we started seeing the first wave of wounded veterans, did you know that their mothers could not help them and be of assistance because in the DOD, wives are recognized, moms are not. So you would think in this day and age we would be past that. We have a lot of work to do, and it's a lot of those very common sense kind of, oh yeah, that makes sense. What I love about the military is that it is structured, but sometimes the structure gets in the way, and in this case it did. So we need to make sure that those things are available at the Fisher House. I think it is a terrific project for Albuquerque, but absolutely desperately needed. I just was with the Native American, actually they're changing their name, the American Indian Veterans Association, and almost all of them, when they receive treatment, are trying to find hotel rooms. That is just, why is that? Why is that? So, what a great idea, and I won't belabor that, but I hope that when you're called upon, that you will dig down deep and grow the seed money that it's going to take for us to actually start.
Thank you. Okay. Now we'll go into our closing remarks, and Janice, you can begin for 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. It has truly been a pleasure to have this discussion this evening. You know, one of the things I think about as I work towards going to Congress and being your representative is the amount of knowledge being lost because so few members in Congress relationship with the military. It is not the same, but having been the daughter of an Air Force officer and the wife of a Navy commander, I bring a very specific view for a very special population, and that is you. And that relationship is something that I take responsibility for, and I would be honored to carry that. You know, there are some things that our nation simply must address, and our returning warriors and protecting the benefits of our service members is one of those things that can't wait. They simply can't wait. And while the debt and the deficit have reached critical mass, we cannot afford to fix, to be placed on the backs of our veterans and their families. That is not where we fix this. You already carried enough on your backs, and I'm grateful for your service. You know, I would like to be your advocate. There are things that we need to do today, and so let me just run down a list of things that I believe can be accomplished within the next year. We need the VA to establish standards for illnesses that do not show up within the prescribed year or two or are not physically visible soon after departure from military service. I know in most cases are denied because the claims don't get filed in time, and a year later after discharge, you're just kind of out of luck. It's time to change that. We must fix the information management system and allow additional hospital care when the people are not within a reasonable distance to the hospital. I think we can fix that. We can and we should make reforms allowing reliable claim processing plus a timely dispute resolution appeal process that gives a soldier and their families full and adequate hearing within a specific time frame. Why 6 months? Not, what did Michelle say, years? That is sinful. And we can just fix the endless round of application, interviews, appeals that now takes years and make it much more efficient and much more responsive. We remain a free country, and we have the ability to make choices because you provided that freedom and safety to us. You have kept us safe, and you have kept the bad things that we are seeing around the world from our shores, and I am grateful. I am grateful. I thank you for the generations who have gone before and the generations who will yet stand on the wall. I am Janice Arnold-Jones. Stand with me. Stand with me for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Stand with me for veterans. Stand with me for our service members. Please stand with me for America. Send me to Washington.
Michelle?
Thank you very much. I want to thank the American Legion Post 22 once again. And I want to thank everyone for spending your Saturday evening with both Janice and I. It means a lot to us. If you take the time and energy to hear what we have to say, engage in this process, to work hard to make the right decision for New Mexico. And that decision, I hope, lends itself to being the right decision for so many other communities and so many other states. I started this conversation about courage and conviction and integrity. And I believe in today's climate, where we've seen more hostility than ever before about trying to figure out ways in which we can support each other in good times and in bad, that what people really want is they want some movement. They want somebody with courage, somebody with conviction, somebody with the integrity to move something forward, somebody who's got a track record of being able to work bipartisan on the issues that matter. Somebody who can figure out what kind of strategic solutions will make the most benefit and the most sense for this district, for this state. We've lost that ability today. And I think that I know that I can bring some sense of that back. Now, I stayed for 3 different administrations, 2 Democratic and 1 Republican administration, because I was very clear about who I worked for. I work for you. I work for everyone. And as long as that is your commitment, that is your purpose, that you're thoughtful about that design, and remember who it is that you work for, particularly in this environment, where we are brought here today to talk about the issues of veterans and their families. In the 90s, when we were having trouble navigating services for so many senior citizens and their families, there was a large number of veterans who needed our help as well. So we created a program called the Health Insurance and Benefits Assistance Corps. It won national awards for the number of people that we were able to navigate the system for. I know, based on that experience and others, that I can navigate this system. That we can create a coalition of reason that's very clear about who it is that they work for and what their priorities are. As a caregiver today, my mother lives with me, I understand what happens if we wait too long. Without me, my mother couldn't afford to live alone. The reality is, she would cost taxpayers far more than our relationship together. We cannot continue to create an environment where people are falling through the cracks. We have to work together to find an environment instead where we are all equally succeeding. I appreciate and respect so much your patriotism, your service, and your sacrifices. I'm grateful to be here tonight. I'm hoping to earn your support and garner your vote